Hello students, so coming to chapter number 8, human health and diseases. In this video class, we will study about immunity. Okay, so come to immunity. So immunity actually it is a condition of being able to resist to a particular disease or infection. Or in simple language, you can say that it is the ability to protect our body from where infection and diseases. And this immunity is of two types. One is innate immunity and another one is acquired immunity. And coming to innate immunity actually is the immunity which is present from birth and which provide protection throughout the life. And this innate immunity can be either physical, physiological, cellular, or cytokine. Okay. Now coming to physical barrier. To understand this physical barrier, I will give you a simple example. Now come to skin. This skin provide protection to the internal tissue. That is, skin provide what? Physical barrier to the internal tissue. Like that, the mucus secreted by the mucous membrane of the internal organ, they can trap the microorganism. Okay. So this skin mucous membrane, they can provide physical barrier. Next, come to physiological barrier. So here the immunity will be provided to the body in relation to the bodily function. To understand this, I will give you a simple example. Saliva and the eye cell, which is secreted in the stomach, they can kill the microbes which are present in the ingested food particle. Like that, even the bile secreted by liver does not allow the growth of microorganism. Okay, so these are the immunity provided to the body in relation to the bodily function. Next, coming to cellular barrier, this cellular barrier will be of two types. One is phagocytic barrier, and the one is cytokine barrier. Okay, and to understand this phagocytic barrier, let us try to define what is phagocytosis. So to understand this, okay, just try to remember how amoeba capture that food particle. We know that amoeba form pseudopodia and engulf the food particle. Okay, that mechanism, that procedure, okay, by which the amoeba capture that food particle is known as phagocytosis. Okay, like that, in our body there are some cells which can directly phagocytose the microbes and kill the microbes. Okay, and some of these cells are neutrophil, which is also known as polymorphonuclear leukocyte. In short, we call it PMNL, and monocyte. And this neutrophil monocyte, they are type of WBC. Okay, and in our tissue, a type of cell is present known as macrophage. This macrophage can also perform phagocytosis. That means in our body, okay, there are some cells which can phagocytose the pathogen and destroy it. Okay, so here you should know the name of the cell which can perform phagocytosis. This is important. Next, come to cytokine barrier. This is also very interesting. Here what happened, the virus infected cell will protect other non-infecting cell, okay, from further viral infection by producing a protein known as what? Interferon. Okay, so these interferon are nothing, they are protein. These are the protein which are produced by which organism? By virus infected cell to protect the nearby cell, okay, from further viral infection. So this is the importance of interferon. Okay, so these are some point related to what? Innate immunity. Next come to acquired immunity. So acquired immunity actually it is the immunity which an individual acquire after the birth. That is the immunity that developed during the lifetime. Okay, and here this acquired immunity will be mediated either by antibody or lymphocyte or both. That means the immunity will be provided by antibody or lymphocyte or both. Okay, don't forget this point. And one of the most important features of acquired immunity is that during the first encounter with the pathogen, our immune system will produce antibody in response to that pathogen. Okay, and definitely the antibody will now react with the pathogen. This first encounter is called primary response. Okay, and this first encounter, that is the primary response, is very much important. So why it is important? Because during this first encounter, our immune system will retain the memory of the pathogen. That is, the memory of the pathogen will be retained during this first encounter. Okay, so in subsequent encounter will happen, that is in second response, the response will occur more quickly. Okay, So based on this, there will be two types of response. One is primary response and one is secondary or anamnestic response. Here, if I say primary response, it is the response, okay, of our immune system during the first contact with the antigen, and the subsequent response will be known as secondary or anamnestic response. This primary response will take time to respond, okay, to the pathogen, but in case of secondary, the response will occur more quickly. I think you can understand this point very easily. But here, the most important point is that during primary response, the memory of the pathogen will be retained. You cannot forget this point. So this is something about primary and secondary response. Next, come to cells which are involved during acquired immunity. So two cells are involved during acquired immunity. One is T lymphocyte and one is B lymphocyte, and you can call this cell as what? T cell or B cell. And we also know that lymphocytes are type of WBC, and WBC are blood cell, and blood cell are produced by bone marrow. So definitely lymphocytes should be produced by bone marrow. So if the lymphocyte produced in bone marrow matures in the bone marrow itself, then the type of lymphocyte is called B lymphocyte. But the lymphocyte which are produced in bone marrow, if it migrates to thymus and matures in the thymus, then such type of lymphocyte will be known as T lymphocyte. And these T lymphocytes are not responsible for the production of antibody, but they will help B cell to produce them, okay? And this antibody will be produced by B lymphocyte with the help of with the help of T lymphocyte, okay? And during we know that during organ transplantation, sometimes organ transplant rejection takes place. That is, transplant rejection occurs, okay, when the transplanted tissue is rejected by the immune system. So these T lymphocyte or T cell, they can respond to organ transplant. That means they are responsible for what? Organ rejection during organ transplantation. On the other side, B cell do not respond to any kind of organ transplant. Okay, that means they are not responsible for organ rejection during organ transplantation. And the immune system present in our body can be divided into two types. One, immunity provided by cell, that is cell mediated immunity, and one is immunity provided by the antibody, that is antibody mediated immune system. So this T lymphocyte or T cell, they are the constituent of cell mediated immunity, and B lymphocyte, they are the constituent of antibody mediated immune system or immunity. Okay, so this is something about the cells of cells which are involved during acquired immunity. Next, come to antibody. So these antibody are actually, they are immunoglobulin, that is they are a kind of glycoprotein which are produced in the body in response to any kind of antigen or any kind of foreign bodies which enter our body, okay? And we also know that these antibodies are produced by B lymphocyte with the help of T lymphocyte. In other words, you can say that these antibody are just like the soldier of our body, okay? Because this antibody will protect our body from different kind of pathogen, different kind of disease, different kind of infection, okay? Next, coming to the structure of antibody, when you look at the figure, you will find that this antibody is somewhat a Y-shaped structure, and this antibody is consists of 4 polypeptide chain, 2 small chain known as light chain, and 2 long chain known as heavy chain. Because of this, the antibody can also be represented by H2L2, okay? And the light chain will be joined with the heavy chain by disulfide bond. Like that, the two heavy chain are also bound together at the base by disulfide bond. Because of this, the antibody can assume a Y-shaped structure. Not only this, the antibody also possesses the antigen binding site, where the antibody will react with the particular antigen. So this is about the structure of antibody, and this brings me to the end of this class. And before we wind up, let me remind you of what we have learned in this class, okay? So here in this class, we have learned about the types of immunity, about innate and acquired immunity, about primary and secondary response. We have discussed about cell which is involved in acquired immunity, that is T lymphocyte and B lymphocyte, and we have also discussed about the structure of antibody. So this brings me to the end of this class, and thank you very much for your attention.